Now, the Syrian government has announced it will hold presidential elections in June, despite the continuing civil war. New rules prevent opposition figures outside the country from standing. President Bashar al-Assad is widely expected to win. His opponents have described the planned polls as a parody of democracy. Well, we can discuss them further with journalist and Syria analyst Sakhr Al-Makhadhi. Thank you very much for coming in. It is very difficult to believe that these elections can take place.
Well, I think they will take place. They won't take place in rebel-held areas, but they will take place in regime-controlled areas, and those regime-controlled areas have grown over the last 18 months. And I think what the regime wants to demonstrate through these elections is that this is a celebration of the fact that President Bashar al-Assad is still standing. Remember, 18 months ago, we were talking about when, not if, the regime would fall. He's still standing, still in power, and still militarily controlling vast swathes of the country. So this is a chance for him and his supporters to have a massive celebration.
Now, realistically, how democratic will these elections be? I believe that this is the first time that there will be more than one name on the ballot paper, but who's going to stand against him?
Well, exactly. This is the first time that it's not been a referendum, so there are going to be more than one name on the ballot paper, but it's going to be severely limited. I mean, it'll have to be regime-approved candidates. The regime's put such restrictions on opposition candidates, so anyone who wants to stand have to be living in Syria for 10 years. They can't have dual citizenship, so that rules out almost all of the exiled opposition, and that's really just to add a bit of window dressing around the edges. But really, this is going to be an election, a one-person election in regime-controlled areas, and also for regime supporters outside of the country.
So realistically, for people on the ground, nothing will change?
No, this isn't a chance for Syrians to voice their opposition or support of the regime. This is simply a flag-waving opportunity for the regime and its supporters. You know, in previous elections or referendums, we've seen, you know, huge street parties, tents with sweets handed out to passers-by, posters put up declaring their support for Bashar al-Assad. None of these elections are aimed in the same way that they are in the West. These are simply chances for large parties to happen. They're not elections where people get to choose the president of Syria.
And Sakhr, what do you think people make of it? Because Syria is divided, there are supporters there. Really, what do people think about this?
Well, I think, you know, Syria is divided, it's polarised. You have rebel supporters on the one hand and the indifferents on the other side who may still be supporting the regime or haven't taken a position. But no, this election isn't going to change that. It's not going to change that polarisation. This is going to further alienate those people who've been repressed by the regime, who've been forced into exile. You know, the people who have been forced out of the country, the millions of refugees, won't be able to vote in these elections. They'll be given the chance to head to a Syrian embassy abroad, but the restrictions on them voting are so tight because, you know, they will have had to cross a legal border crossing. They'll have to present ID at the embassy. So no, it's a one-side election. It's only for supporters of the regime, and it simply alienates and further dispossesses the other side of the Syrian majority.
Okay, Sakhr Al-Makhadhi, thank you so much for coming in to just talk us through those elections coming up in Syria. Thank you for your time.